Hi, everybody. Oops, sorry, that's pretty loud. Before we get started, I'm going to ask for a little bit of audience participation. If you don't mind scanning this QR code or typing this code at Mentimeter, just wanting to know, what did you want to be when you grew up? And that's assuming you did grow up, because I know I haven't, so you can just say what you still want to be if you haven't yet either. So I'll give everybody a few minutes here. Either is fine, because both is still true for me. All right, I'm seeing a lot of different things up here. We've got a pilot, a sysadmin, a dinosaur, a soccer player, somebody that doesn't know and still doesn't know, a marine biologist, a designer, but for some reason Mentimeter decided to put the QR code right over everything. Lots of pilots. All right, we've got lots of pilots here. All right, so by a show of hands, how many of you guys are doing what you said you were going to do? That definitely counts. All right, so we've got one. For those of you that are not what you wanted to be, don't worry, I'm not either. So I'm going to take you for a little walk down memory lane. I'll share with you some of the things that I thought I would be when I grew up. First, I thought it might be an on-call supervisor. As an infant, my parents thought I'd be really good at this. I kept them up at night, all night through the night. But I got a little bit older, and I could see how strong my parents were getting from holding me all the time. It's like, hey, maybe I'll get into fitness. I can be a strength coach. But I started to get a little bit more in tune with who I was and the world around me, and I saw that my mom was a hairdresser, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let me be just like her. I tried out a few hairstyles and decided, no, I should probably model hats instead. But in all seriousness, I started to get in touch with the world around me and having my own thoughts, my own desires, and my own likes. And ice cream was one of them. It still is. I was always eating it. And I wanted to work in an ice cream shop. But my dreams got a little bit bigger when I hit first grade, and I wanted to be the president of the United States. I don't know if the hair informed this dream or the dream informed the hair, but either way, I think I was pretty good to go here. But again, scaled it back, had to get back to reality, and decided I wanted to be like my parents. I wanted to own my own business and be an entrepreneur. But I also wanted to help people. So growing up, I wanted to work in a nonprofit. But I started going through high school and college and meeting with mentors, and they all suggested I get some corporate experience before going nonprofit. So I started thinking about what that would look like for me. And I remembered my parents owning their own business. So I decided I could still help people. I used to help my parents market their business. I wanted to become a marketing professional. And I did. And I did marketing for 10 years. And I loved helping small businesses, but honestly, it wasn't for me. It kind of got a little bit redundant for me. And I realized I had a sweet spot for technology and building process, which gets me here. Today, I'm a senior technical project manager at Red Hat, supporting core platforms in Linux engineering, and I'm in part of the Rivos team, which is developing an in-vehicle operating system. So I do a lot of process design, I help teams adopt Agile, and I facilitate a lot of different meetings, working groups, and whatnot to try and make life easier for those around me and the teams that I'm supporting. And just because we're not doing what we thought we would do when we grew up, it doesn't mean we failed. Life really, it doesn't follow a waterfall model. It's actually agile. And look at it, nobody ran away, that's great. So thank you all for coming today. This is Born Agile, while engineers resist what comes naturally. Like I said, I want to walk you through some of the things that I've learned along the way, and help you understand that Agile's really not that scary. So whether you're an Agile practitioner that's coming up against some resistance, whether you're an engineer that's hearing that your team is going to adopt Agile and you're just a little bit afraid of it, just want to take you through, I'm sorry why it's super loud in here, did not mean that, take you through some of the things that I've learned along the way and how it relates to real life. So first up is how you learn to live. And this is not an existential crisis. It doesn't have to go that deep. But like any good piece of software, you started with a minimal feature set. Day one, you could eat, sleep, burp, you cried when something was wrong. That was it. There was no walking, no talking, no complex problem solving. So what if you were born with all the skills that you would ever have in life? Be pretty scary. So now you know it was okay to laugh at that picture. I know it's really bad. And you didn't turn into a functioning adult overnight. You actually, like a piece of software, had a development cycle. And I do apologize for dividing your life into sprints, but it's a little bit of who I am. Sprint 1, you could hold your head up and you could smile. Sprint 2, you could sit up, you could crawl. And by sprint 3, you were walking and saying your first words. Sprint 4 comes around. Not only could you run, but you could run away from your parents, and now you could also speak in simple sentences. And sprint 5, you could jump, draw, and turn those simple sentences into a little bit of backtalk. But things didn't stop here, and they never do. Life is an ongoing, continuous improvement journey. You're always learning, you're always growing, and you're always adapting to change. And you didn't go at this journey of life alone. You don't continue to go at it alone, and it is not a linear journey. There's a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot of changes, and there's always support around you. Even if you look through my childhood pictures, as embarrassing as they are, you can see that I was surrounded by mentors, by family, and shaped by the different experiences and the feedback that I got on a continuous basis. You know, it was incremental change. I had bigger dreams. They were scaled down to reality. And over time, I was getting closer and closer to who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do when I grow up. And that's really what got me here. But now that I'm here as a technical project manager at Red Hat, it doesn't mean that I stop learning and growing. I try and learn and grow every day, like I'm sure every single one of you do in your jobs, at life, work, and at home. So how do you go from baby to an adult? Well, you try things, and you learn what works. You ask questions, and you get help from others. And you have parents and teachers guiding you, providing feedback all the time. And based on that, you're improving, you're adapting, and you're refining your processes. And you're taking those small wins and always wanting to show off what you could do. Like even as a kid, think about the first time you could do the monkey bars. You couldn't wait to show all of your friends. And it's about celebrating those continuous wins and always having something to show to deliver. So what's this look like in real life? I guess you'll never know because my video is not coming up. Thank you, Guest Network. It's going from crawling to pulling yourself up and eventually walking to running your first race and ultimately celebrating winning your first medal. And this is a true story. This is my daughter. She turned 4 this year. This week actually. And I'm gonna take you through this progression in a little bit more detail. So 4 years ago, she was a week old. She was literally pulling herself across the floor with this superhuman strength, something I had really never seen I was new to being a parent, but I'd never seen a baby try and do this at such a young age. But my husband and I, we encouraged her, we pushed her, and we helped push her along. You could see my hand in the back letting her kick off. And she was moving, but hardly at all. It was an inch, maybe an inch after 15 minutes. But this was her MVP in mobility. And she kept trying and building upon this, and a few months later, she was crawling. And with this newfound mobility, she was getting into all types of trouble, and we had to put those baby locks up. But she learned that she could do this, and you could see she pulled herself up, and she started trying to take some of her first steps. And she didn't always succeed, but she kept trying. And then she was able to walk, and that turned into running. And you can see we have a consistent feedback loop here. She was getting faster and faster, but like in life, she was watching every day that I would go for a run, and she decided that she wanted to do that too. So we started to sprint, and I totally intended that awful pun. Jeff, you know that my dad jokes are awful, and you're here for it. And we ran further and further every day until this first race. And this was her demo day. She couldn't wait to show it off, and we're here with all of her stakeholders providing consistent feedback through high fives, through hugs, and she was there with her mentor, her big cousin in the front there. He had run the race before, And he showed her how it was done. And once she did this, she was so proud that she wanted to run again. So we signed up for another race. And the weather wasn't so nice this time, so she had to adapt. But she tried hard, she trained, and she earned her first medal. And we celebrated this. This is that continuous delivery. So I'm not here to just show off pictures of my daughter, because I would do that all day, every day. I mean, I'm kind of here for that. I would do it if I was allowed. But I also want to tie this into life and Agile development. This is really just a small example of a transformation from a baby to a more functioning adult. And yes, she is still only in sprint 4 of her life, and I would like to keep it that way for a little bit longer. But you can see the threads of iteration and discovery, continuous improvement, and continuous delivery throughout this story. And isn't that the heart of Agile? I mean, I would argue it is, but how do we relate this back to engineering and what we do every day? Well, new teams are a lot like babies and little kids. You know, whether it be crying like a child or simple one-on-one chats or emails or informal conversations, at the beginning, communication in a new team is pretty limited. And people don't know each other, and you have to build up that trust and rapport to really get that communication flowing. You know, also, processes are either non-existent or really simple. You know, some babies have a nice sleep schedule when they're born, others don't. And the same is true for teams. You know, many start out in startup mode. Teams are trying new things. It's all hands on deck. And sometimes, I mean, it's great, it helps build up the trust, but like no sleep schedule, sometimes that can result in a little bit of chaos. And babies and new teams are new. They're a lot of times starting at ground zero, trying to get to know each other, trying to understand the goals, where they're trying to head. And there's not really structure or clear guidance of where they're heading. So they need to figure out the next steps. And that usually comes from the people around them and people that have experience doing things. So it's easy to say that babies, kids, and new teams all have a heavy dependency on others. And in the work setting, that's where Agile coaches come in. Like loving parents, Agile coaches try and set up a framework for communication and collaboration. You know, early on, parents try and teach their kids how to communicate, how to call for help, how to share, how to work with others. And Agile coaches are doing the same. Some might call them dreaded ceremonies, but it's really just a touch point in trying to build up that communication so the team has a support group and knows how to get through blockers. And also, Agile coaches set up lightweight processes. It's really to help the team reduce handoffs, to reduce the burden and mental load of trying to understand where to go, how to fix something, and how to move forward on a complicated project. You know, it's the same thing as a parent. You set up a routine. When kids know what to expect, it's a lot easier to get them out the door and you follow the same steps every day. You know, at the end of the day, we're trying to do the same thing as Agile coaches. It's this wash, rinse, and repeat so folks understand, you know, what it takes, and it's a lot easier to move through the development cycle. And also, you know, Agile coaches need to set up psychological safety. The same way parents need to establish trust with their kids so they talk to them, Agile coaches need the team to be able to talk to them, to explain their pain points, explain, you know, what they need to succeed. And the retrospective is a really great example of this, but a retro is really not meaningful unless there's that trust, so people feel the safety that they need to be able to bring the feedback they need to the team. And, you know, it's not to be confused, like Agile coaches are not there to enable the teams, like to be an enabler. They need to create an enabling environment to allow teams to start doing things on their own. Because over time, the teams become more and more independent until one day they're self-organizing. And that is a little bit of a bittersweet moment. You know, like a new parent sending a kid off to college, it's what you always dreamed of. You want your child to succeed. You really want them to be independent and be a contributing member of community and of society. But when you say goodbye to them, it's really sad because you've been the one leading them and bringing them to that point in their life. And the same is true for Agile coaches. Agile coaches become embedded in the team. They really start to feel a connection to the team And they want more than anything for the team to be able to set their own goals and for the team to ship value independently and be able to adapt to change. But when they start doing that, it's a little bit sad because they're saying, goodbye, I'm on to my next team. But it doesn't mean the lines of communication close, but it is just a bittersweet moment for an Agile coach. So it sounds like we've got a lot of correlation between real life and work. So if we naturally have these Agile tendencies, why is there such a resistance to Agile adoption? In my opinion, that comes down to misconceptions and maybe some bad experiences, because there is such a thing. It might be that people think that there's endless ceremonies and rituals, or that adopting Agile means you have Scrum Masters micromanaging your day, or that there's forced communication and these daily stand-ups with story points being forced. Story points, it sounds fake. It's not real. They might think that they're going to spend more time in Jira than they are in code. And they might think it's just Agile for the sake of being Agile. It's a buzzword. It's what they're being told to do by management. And what's in it for me? Sounds scary. But Agile's not about all these scary things. It's really just a mindset. It's taking small steps and learning as you go. Things change over time. You can't just build everything wholesale at the beginning and expect it to be what the customer wanted 3 years from now. Take small steps. Focus on what really matters. It's all about delivering value early and often. And it's about doing so with minimal overhead and maximum value. Agile, like I said, it's just a framework. It's a mindset. Yes, there are some really complicated Agile models and frameworks. There might be things like less and safe. And there might be things that you like out of these frameworks. So don't feel like you have to adopt everything or everything all at once. Find out what matters most to your team, find the right touch points, build in that collaboration and a culture of continuous improvement. And it needs to be natural. Give a chance for exploration, give a chance for experimentation. The same way you can't run before you can walk and you can't walk before you can crawl, take a natural approach, learn small steps, make small changes to improve process, to improve your product over time. So why should engineers care? That's a good question. Well, so you can avoid the things you don't like. And the spoiler alert here is it's not Agile that everybody hates, but everybody does love to hate Agile. But here's what engineers don't really like. And if anybody disagrees, feel free to chime in and correct me. But I don't know any engineers that love tackling mountains of technical debt or delivering features that nobody's ever going to use or being blocked. There's a difference. I know there's a lot of times that people like to work on their own to try and solve a problem. And that's great because there's some great focus work. But over time, you might reach a point where you're banging your head on the wall and you don't really want to be there for too long, especially if the wall's made of concrete. So how can these things be avoided? Well, this time the answer is Agile. Agile can help solve these problems by giving engineers an environment to thrive, to see if something works, to try again and to build upon it in small and slow ways. It's by showing work early and often and getting feedback. It's not about spending 2 years to plan and deliver a feature without ever showing it to a customer or to a product owner or to product management, because chances are technology changed, and the other chances are maybe their mind changed. Anybody work with a business unit whose mind has not changed? All right. And it's also about collaborating and working together to solve problems and building what actually matters, focusing on value and delivering that value early and often. And these shorter development cycles can actually help reduce the technical debt because you can tackle it as you go rather than waiting and for it to build up and snowball. So this all sounds good. So why is there so much fear? Well, again, it comes back to the misconceptions. And I think a lot of people think that Agile is about all these forced interactions and that you're going to spend hours a day in meetings that don't really matter. But really, it's a 15-minute stand-up. What are you working on? Are you blocked on anything? Who can help you? it's not just about having like this game of estimation and planning poker. Is it small? Is it medium? Is it large? Is there any trade-off that you can make? How can we make this thing happen? And what's going to deliver the most meaning today? And it's not about just sitting and being a Jira monkey. It's about having, working software over documentation. But you still need to have something to track it, because over time, somebody might want to go back, see what you did. And also having the work enumerated brings transparency and does help with those trade-off conversations. It's about responding to change and making meaningful improvements in connection. It's not all about, ceremonies for ceremony's sake. There is actual meaning and method to the madness, as they might say. So at the end of the day, let's keep things simple. Let's ship small working code frequently. Let's get feedback early and often. We'll collaborate closely with others, adapt when you learn something new, and focus on solving real problems. So these are the things that Agile is actually trying to accomplish. So the next time that you start hearing somebody fear Agile, or that you're starting to have some fear about Agile itself, just focus on these things. And if you can't think of that, just act like you're 5 again. Value curiosity over certainty. Pretend you're in kindergarten. Go to that toy box, pull out some things, see how they work, build with the blocks. And over time, you're going to learn. You're going to see how those building blocks work together and maybe get to that really cool tall tower. The same way, value these quick experiments. You can't plan everything out, nor should you be expected to. Don't spend all of your time planning. Try things, see if it works. If it works, great, build upon it. If it doesn't, you didn't waste too much time. Ask for help instead of struggling alone. In school and young kids, they learn how to ask for help pretty early. Help, help, help. You can do the same. There's no harm and shame in asking for help. Collaborate with your team. There's somebody there that can help you. And learn through play versus rigid structure. It doesn't have to be this crazy framework that everybody has to follow. You don't have to do every single thing that an Agile framework says. Play with it. See how it works. If it works for your team, great. If not, you can always change it. And try over and over to improve your skills. The first time you tried to walk, you fell down. First time you tried to do the monkey bars, you might have ended up in the hospital. But you never gave up. So keep trying over and over. And most importantly, pretending that you're 5 means that I can still work in that ice cream shop and you can be a dinosaur. So, thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments, or disagreements? Feedback on bad jokes is also welcome.
Yeah, the sprint one. How long did you sit on that sprint joke where the kid was running around the trampoline?
That one actually came naturally. I adapted when I found it in my videos. I was looking for one of her learning how to run, and I saw her running in a circle, and I thought, I got this.
All right. Nicely done. Not AI, huh? Okay.
None of the videos were AI. Those were all real. This Agile dinosaur picture, yes, that was AI. All right. Well, thank you.